Great. All right, thank you. So as we get started, let's take a quick look at what's happened over the last seven or 8 years in the world of video.
When we first started, it was just trying to share these clips with one another.
We saw the power of simplifying a process and giving everyone a solution.
Hi YouTube, we just want to say thank you. Today we have some exciting news for you. We've been acquired by Google.
Hello?
Johnny, that really hurt.
I'm Clara, I'm 91 years old.
This is the CNN YouTube debate.
Yes, we can.
One of the features of growing old is heightened awareness of change.
Is this real life?
Oh my God, you're walking.
We can't handle it.
Justin Bieber's getting ready to go down.
People who are taking these pictures are literally risking their lives to do what they're doing, and YouTube gives them a venue.
Your device is on. Yeah.
Great. So, thank you. So yeah, quite a lot's happened, over the past 7 or 8 years, and thank you for having me here today. So what we're going to talk about today is the value of building and owning your own audience. But before we get started, I'd like to see a quick show of hands. How many people here work for a brand or work on a brand that you would say has its own Facebook strategy? See hands? Okay, quite a few, not quite everybody, but almost. How many people here would say that they have their own YouTube strategy? Okay, considerably less. So hopefully, by the end of today, we can change that and we can get everybody, wanting to put their hands up. So, what we're going to talk about today is the value of building and owning your own audience. We'll talk a little bit about the future of TV and video, where we see it going, and what YouTube is doing to get ready for that change. So, we're at a really interesting and pivotal time in the history of television and video. We think the time that we're in right now is very similar to what happened to television in the 1980s. So for those of you that might remember, in the 1970s, there were maybe 3 or 4 networks in every country, right? And these networks were terrestrial networks, right? So they had huge infrastructure costs, right? They had to broadcast their signal, and it cost them a lot of money to set up that infrastructure. So there wasn't a lot of competition. And so here in Canada, you had CTV and City. In the U.S., we had networks like ABC, NBC, and CBS, right? So there was only 4 networks. Those 4 networks had 100% of the viewership, right? Because there wasn't any other choices. So something really interesting happened in the 80s, right? We had the advent of cable. And with the advent of cable, we changed the economics of distribution. It became much more efficient and effective to deliver video content to consumers. So creators who wanted to reach new audiences no longer had the same barriers, right? They could create channels and directly target users. So a great example is the world of sports. Right? In the 70s, if you were really passionate about sports, there was only a few times a week that you could watch sports content. As we moved into the 80s with cable, you had ESPN, right? 24/7, more sports than you could ever think about consuming. And something interesting happened to viewership over this period, over the last 30 years. Those original 4 networks, which used to have 100% of the viewership, today only have 25% of the viewership. And 75% of the viewership is now on this longer tail of cable channels, right? And these cable channels, meet a variety of different needs of their viewers. So what's happening today? Well, we think today we're shifting from the cable delivery of video content to the internet delivery of video content. And what that's going to do is it's going to blow up the economics of television. It's going to make it much easier for creators to directly target their users, to target viewers. And we're going to go from hundreds of channels to thousands of channels. And we think it's reasonable to assume that viewership will undergo a similar shift as it did when we moved into cable. So that 100 channels that you know of today, we think we'll only get about 25% of the viewership in 5 or 10 years, and 75% of the viewership maybe against channels that are just getting started. Somebody like maybe Epic Mealtime here in Canada, or a channel that hasn't even been created yet, right? So as marketers and advertisers, you might look at this and say, oh my God, the audience is already fragmented enough, right? We're having a hard enough time trying to find the consumers that we need to reach today. How are we going to do this as we move to thousands of channels in the next 5 to 10 years? Well, the bad news is, or the good or bad news is actually the change isn't over. Right? This isn't the only change that we're going to see over the next couple of years. We also know that there's a huge shift in the way consumers are viewing content, right? So, we showed a video a few minutes ago, went back 8 years, right? And it showed the evolution of online video. You go back 8 years, how did you watch video, right? There was only one way, right? You had your television. Maybe some of you played around with video on the internet, but it was very hard, right? You couldn't actually get videos to load. You had to download all sorts of different players. So a lot has changed over the past 8 years, and we're now seeing consumers consume content across a wide variety of devices, right? Today on YouTube, 25% of our views on any single day are happening on a mobile device. That's 4 billion views. That's 1 billion views a day out of our 4 billion total, right? So this is a huge shift. And as marketers, you're not only going to have to figure out how do I find and reach my audience in this 1,000-channel universe, but what's the best device to reach them on, and how am I going to reach them when they move from TV to PC to mobile device or tablet? Well, the good news is, I hope, that YouTube, we're working hard to re-aggregate these audiences for you. So today, YouTube has about 800 million viewers worldwide that tune in every month, and we're doing about 4 billion hours of what we call watch time every single month. And I know those numbers are kind of, they can be a little bit staggering and they're hard to put in context, but what I think this underscores is that this shift really is taking place. Right? We talked about the shift from cable to internet delivery of video content. When you see a number like 4 billion hours watched per month, when you hear a number like 4 billion videos viewed per day, it's a real sign that viewer behavior is changing. And I'm sure many of you in this room, there may be some of you in this room that, have cut the cord, right? And you're now viewing all of your content over the internet, or over the top. And, we think this is a trend that is going to continue. It probably starts with a younger consumer set and then expands over the next 5 to 10 years to all consumers. So big challenges for marketers, right, with these changes. But YouTube, we're also not immune to these changes, right? We may have helped kickstart this revolution, but we also have to prepare for it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that we're doing to get ready for this shift. So the first thing that we're doing is we like to call it channelizing the YouTube experience, right? So if you think back maybe 2 years about what your experience on YouTube was like, it was really an individual video viewing experience, right? You would come to YouTube, you'd watch a video, And then as a user, you would choose the next video that you were going to watch. So you would either search or you would click on a thumbnail, and you would go on this really user-directed experience. And I think that's great, right? It helped us get as big as we are. But it's very different from how you watch TV, right? When you go home at night, you probably have 4 or 5 networks that you know, love, and trust. You probably know their programming schedule by heart. And when you turn on your TV, you flip directly to those networks, right? So we realize that as we go to this 1,000-channel universe, we need to create the same type of dynamic on YouTube. So we've redesigned the site around channels. And what you'll see here in this screenshot, and this is actually a little bit outdated. If you go to YouTube today, you'll see that we've actually updated the UI even more. But you'll see that there's a programming guide down the right-hand side, right? And all of those channels there, Vice, Geek and Sundry, those are channels that I've subscribed to, right? And so now when I go to YouTube, the middle feed is updated with content from the channels I've subscribed to. So I've personalized my experience. The important thing here is that once you subscribe, those subscriptions carry across all devices. So if you haven't, I would encourage you to download the iOS or the Android app, the new YouTube, go to the actual website version, log in, subscribe to some channels, and then open up your phone, log in, and see how the experience is consistent, right? And so we believe this is an important part of how consumers are going to be consuming video, because we know that they're not tethered in front of their televisions anymore. They're going to be moving, across a wide variety of devices. So this is kind of the first step. Change the YouTube experience, orient it around channels, make sure that the experience is consistent across all devices. But we didn't want to stop there, right? So we also then went out, and over the past 2 years, we've started investing in content. And so we've invested in over 150 original channels in 5 countries around the world. And what we wanted to do here was really help start this next wave of broadcast network. So if in the 1980s, we saw the advent of ESPN and MTV and HBO, as we head into this next wave, we believe that some of the channels we've invested in are part of that next wave of the future. So some of these channels may become the next MTV. They may be some of the biggest networks that consumers around the world are watching. We think a few things is going to happen with these channels that we've invested in and others that start on their own. We think, one, we'll see the emergence of some of the first global networks, right? There's no barriers on the internet. The content that you put up in one country is viewed around the world. 70% of the views from any particular region tend to be from countries outside of that region. Some countries export, we call it export, meaning the views are taking place in other places more than other countries, right? So these networks will be global. We also believe that many of them will be more niche. So if you think about cable again, when cable first started, the promise of those 100 channels was that they could target very specific audiences. And so you had channels, this is one of my favorite examples, you have channels like American Movie Classics, right? American Movie Classics in the 80s, or in the 80s and 90s, what did they play? They played classic movies from the history of American cinema. Today, what is AMC known for, right? It's known for The Walking Dead, right? Very, very different, fantastic show, very different from what their original vision was. And so what's happened in the world of cable is that original promise of niches, all of those channels have broadened, and they've kind of lost that, they've lost the ability to speak directly to a highly passionate consumer or viewer. So what happens in this next wave is we get global channels, but we also get the re-emergence of niche channels. Because the cost infrastructure is so different, right? You actually can go out and let's say, you are a huge fan of whether it's a particular type of, let's say it's, we use this example sometimes, let's say it's vegan cooking, or let's say you're a yoga enthusiast. It's very conceivable that 3 to 5 years from now, there will be a yoga network on YouTube, because they won't have to invest in the costly cable infrastructure. So this will help certain brands and certain advertisers really reach viewers that are passionate about specific subject matters. So what I wanted to do now was just take a moment to pause and take a look at some of the examples of some of the channels that have launched in the last year. This first one is called Awesomeness TV. Awesomeness TV is from a guy by the name of Brian Robbins. You probably don't know his name, but if you have kids, or if you grew up in the last 20 years and ever turned on Nickelodeon, you've probably seen programming that Brian has created, or if you ever watch shows like One Tree Hill. So Brian has created some of the most iconic programming for teens over the past 20 years. Last year, Brian, or actually 2 years ago, Brian went to NatP, which takes place this week in Miami, with his kids. And in the rooms at this particular hotel where NatP takes place, there's a TV, 40-inch TV, and right next to it there's a 28-inch or 30-inch iMac, giant monitor. He brought his kids with him to Miami, and he watched. This is a guy that creates television for teens and kids for a living, and he watched as his kids walked into the room, they walked by the television, they fired up the computer. He was there for 4 days. The kids never turned on the television. Every day they would go online, they would go to YouTube, they would go to Hulu. They were consuming all of their content through the computer. And Brian realized that this shift was coming, and he realized that unlike the current world, where he would create a show and try to sell it to a network and then have no connection with his audience, he had the opportunity to build his own network and directly interact and connect with the consumers and the viewers that he was trying to reach. So Brian created Awesomeness TV, a new network for teens, and I'm going to show you a clip from one of the shows just to give you a sense of what the content is like and what the next wave of YouTube is going to look like.
Since when are a couple of runaways a reason to interrogate half the school?
Where are Haley and Mason?
I knew something like this was gonna happen.
Are they in some sort of trouble?
I make it my business to know everything that goes on in this school.
She's never been okay with my being so much more popular.
Seriously, why would she think I would know where they went?
He pursued her at first.
What do I know?
It was sweet.
That he's violent.
She was lying, I could tell. She was covering
He's
for
a
him.
snob.
Did they do something wrong?
Please, you have to forgive me.
Like a stalker.
There are police all over Kaylee's house. There are body bags.
I know that it's a secret, and I gotta keep it, but I want the lights on, yeah, I want the lights on, and I don't wanna run away anymore. Leave the lights on, leave the lights on. I know that it's a secret, and I gotta keep it, but I want the lights on, yeah, I want the lights on, leave the lights on, leave the lights on.
I can run away. But why would I want to?
So that's the Runaways. You can find it on Awesomeness TV. They had their first season this past year. It did incredibly well with viewers, and we're actually in the process of working with Brian to plan the next season of the Runaways. But what I hope you take away, I'm going to show one more video from a show. But what I hope you take away from some of these examples is this is very different maybe from the YouTube that you might think about. When you think about YouTube, you may think of user-created content, but what we're seeing is as we start to make this shift into professionally produced content, into content that might be more, that might look and feel more premium, the viewers are responding to it. So this next example, this is from a guy by the name of Bryan Singer. Bryan Singer executive produced Superman and X-Men, and he had this vision for a sprawling sci-fi fantasy, kind of a dystopian future that he wanted to create. But as he thought about television and as he thought about film, where he traditionally has done his work, he realized that it didn't have the right tools for him to tell this story. He wanted to tell a story in multiple, with multiple episodes, like huge numbers of episodes, multiple arcs, backstories. And so he created this series that runs on a channel on YouTube called H+. And I think, as you watch this, what I would ask you to take a look at is look at the quality of production, the quality of special effects, and start to realize that, as we're talking about shifting the economics of distribution, the economics of production have also been changing with the advancements in technology. And so the quality of production we're starting to see on YouTube channels is now rivaling, and in many cases surpassing, what you might see today on television or cable, broadcast television or cable.
You single-handedly changed the way people access the internet.
I can use H+ to communicate with other people. Can they know what I'm thinking?
It's amazing.
But there's a giant invisible hand that's gripping all of this very tightly.
Right. So if you're a sci-fi fan, hugely recommend you check out H+. So the question that we get asked is how is all this working? This is a big bet for YouTube. Started 2 years ago. We started channelizing the site by changing the design. We started investing large amounts of money in original content creation. And so the question is, how is it working? Well, we're thrilled with the results so far, and I'll share a couple of metrics with you. One of the first metrics is that 25 of the channels are doing 1 million views a week. Now, I'm sure many of you in this audience work at a brand or work at an agency, and you've had a client say to you at one time or the other, I have this piece of content, help me get 1 million views on it. You know how hard that is to do, right? These are 25 channels that are doing at least 1 million views a week on a consistent basis. Some of them are doing 3, 4, and 5. When you start talking about 5 million views, you're actually starting to compete with cable shows and cable networks and actually surpass them, right? It's not, there's many times where the viewership of a cable program, will be in the 500,000 or 1 million. There's now networks and channels on YouTube that are doing that every single week, and it's only growing. The second metric is subscribers, and subscribers is a really important metric on YouTube. Subscribers, again, it's like that. I showed you the interactive guide, right? So you actually go in, you find a channel that you like, and you subscribe to that channel. It doesn't cost anything. It's kind of like adding something to your DVR. But what it does is it notifies you, the platform notifies you when that content creator adds more content. And again, it also helps you keep the experience consistent across devices. 49 of our channels have passed the 100,000 subscriber mark. And many of them are in the hundreds, they're 3, 4, 500,000 subscribers, right? So this is a huge sign to us that this initiative is gaining traction. The other reason subscribers are important is because subscribers watch twice as much content as non-subscribers, right? And I want you to remember this because towards the end, we're going to talk a little bit about the value for brands in building and owning their own audiences. And subscribers are an important part of thinking about that. We're also really thrilled that over the past year, some of the biggest brands in the world have partnered with us to help support this effort and are spending tens of millions of dollars against original content on YouTube. And I'm sure many of you work with some of the brands represented here. So when it comes to advertising, we want to make sure we're also innovating there. So we're innovating the YouTube experience. We're innovating how we acquire content. We're also innovating the advertising world. So on YouTube, we think it's really important that everything we do benefits the entire ecosystem, right? So if something works for advertisers but doesn't work for the viewers, then it doesn't really work, right? So one of the things that we've introduced that I hope many of you are familiar with is an advertising format called TrueView. TrueView is a skippable ad format, right? And many of you, I hope, have seen it. Ad starts playing, and at the 5-second mark, the user has a choice to skip the ad. Advertisers only pay for the users that stay engaged with the advertising. So there's no risk. As an advertiser, you only pay for people that stay and watch. For the viewer, it's a great experience, right? They only watch the ads that they care about and they're engaged in. So this works really well for the whole ecosystem. It means advertisers can be more comfortable on YouTube, content creators make more money, and that means more great content for our users. So I would encourage you, if you're not familiar with TrueReview, to look into it, because we're seeing it deliver great efficiency for advertisers, and for our content creators, it's delivering revenue for them that is comparable to the revenue they make per hour for advertising on TV. So that's all great, right? We want you to obviously, to advertise on YouTube, but we think if that's all you do, you're missing a huge part of the opportunity. We don't want you to just reach the audience, right? Which is really kind of just like renting, right? You're just renting those eyeballs from the content creator. We want you to build and own your own audience. Now, I've said that a couple times, and you were probably sitting there wondering, what is he talking about, right? So I want to show you some examples of what building and owning your own audience looks like, and then we can talk about the value that can bring you. So here's an example of Gillette, and this is something that we're doing, P&G. This is something that we're doing in EMEA. Gillette knows that their consumers, right, men, are hugely passionate about football, hugely passionate about soccer. They also knew that there was no single place, either on television or on the internet, where you could see all of the best football highlights on a weekly basis. So we partnered with Gillette to create the Gillette Football Club. The Gillette Football Club features all of the best highlights and game clips from every football league, every football club. We went out and signed 300 football clubs to get content from them, from their star athletes, behind the scenes. We partnered with the leagues to get highlights. We partnered with the broadcasters to get game footage. So Gillette now has created a central hub where users know they can go when they want to see the best things that are happening in football that week. And I want you to think about this for a second. This is a screenshot that I took right after it launched. Here it's 12,000 subscribers. Today, it's about 75,000 subscribers. So we're about 5 months in. Think about Gillette. Let's go 2 years, 3 years in the future. Let's say Gillette has 1 million subscribers to this channel that are coming back every day to watch football clips. How does that change the way Gillette can think about their advertising, right? How does that change the way they can directly interact with their consumer, right? Because there's no longer an intermediary. There's no longer a channel, a network that's an intermediary between them and the consumer. The consumer's coming directly to them for the content that they're passionate about. And then they can start to directly message, directly interact, provide offers. So really could start to fundamentally change things for them. So that's an example of, I would kind of say that's an example of curation, right? So not every brand is going to create content. So that's an example of how a brand can kind of look at stuff that's already out there and put it in a wrapper that makes sense for that brand. Another great example is Red Bull, and I'm sure many of you hopefully are familiar with some of the things they've been doing. They do approach things a little bit differently. Red Bull actually, although we know of them as a consumer packaged goods company, they actually have an entire content production division, and they've done some really amazing and innovative things. 5 years ago, Red Bull put their first video up on YouTube, right? They were testing it out. They wanted to see how the platform worked. They spent the last 5 years dedicated to the platform, and it's been routine over the past few years for some of their videos to get 5 or 10 million views. And then this last October, they did the Red Bull Stratos jump. And let's take a quick look at that.
All right, now the whole road is looking on. I'm going over.
Jumper away. Speed 725. Showing Felix in a stable descent.
So that was viewed, some of you may know, that was viewed 8 million times live, right? So Red Bull, last October, put on an event on their YouTube channel that was viewed live by 8 million people around the world. It's been viewed tens of millions of times since then. But as a casual observer, you might look at that and say, wow, it almost looks like an overnight success. But the reality is that Red Bull has been working hard to build their presence on YouTube for the past 5 years. When they announced they were going to do Stratos, they had about 400,000 subscribers on their YouTube channel. Today, Red Bull has 1.4 million subscribers to their YouTube channel. So and again, I want you to think about, as marketers, as media folks, how does that change the equation for them, right? They now have 1.4 million consumers who are advocates for their brand, that actually wait and watch for them to put up new content, right? So now we know we all can't be Red Bulls, right? But I think the key, message here is, you have to make the commitment, and that commitment, can pay dividends off in the future, right? So again, in 2005, they had no idea what was going to be possible for them in 2012, but they trusted in the platform. They saw the value of building and owning their own audience, and they committed to it, and it's paid dividends. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, we think there's huge changes coming to the video and to the television market. We're shifting from the cable delivery of video content to the internet delivery of video content. That changes the economics of distribution. It removes the barriers, right? There's nothing stopping a content creator like Brian Robbins, who wants to build his own teen network, from doing that. And there's nothing stopping a brand or a marketer from building their own channel and creating a direct relationship with their consumers. So what I'd like you to think about, after this session and today when you go back and you meet with your agencies or you meet with your clients, is start to think about how and what kind of strategy you can put in place to help those brands start to build and own their own audience so that you can change your relationship with your consumer a year from now, 2 years, 5 years from now. Great. So thank you very much. And I think, great, thank you.
Hi, okay. Do we have any questions for Jamie?
Please. Yeah.
You mentioned you guys invested in channels.
Yes. The Epic Mealtime? Yeah. Great question. So at YouTube, we really think of ourselves as a platform. In a way, we think we're starting to look and feel like cable, what we call an MSO or an MVPD, a cable platform, right? So we actually don't own any of the content or the channels that we've invested in. What we've done is we invested in them to de-risk the proposition, right? So in the same way that as a marketer, as a client, you may be a little bit skeptical of YouTube, content creators 2 years ago were skeptical about the YouTube proposition. They saw individuals or teams like Epic Mealtime. They saw them commit to the platform and have great success, but the professional content community was nervous about engaging in the YouTube platform. So what we did is we started this program. We invested in the channels. They own all the rights to the content. They own the content. And we basically earn back that investment through the advertising dollars that we've spent. And what it's done is it's completely changed the way content creators, professional content creators, think about the YouTube platform. And the amount of talent that we're now seeing become interested in digital video is phenomenal. And it's everybody from people behind the screen, like the Brian Robbins and the Brian Singers, to people in front of the screen, like an Amy Poehler or a Rainn Wilson. So the initiative has really, I think, changed our relationship with content creators, but the creators maintain all rights to the content.
I saw a couple articles talking about how YouTube's going to start charging between $1 and $5 for channels.
Yeah. So we don't have anything to announce that on what's being called, I think, paid subscriptions. What I think I can say, or what I will say, is that when you look at the world of cable or television, content creators in the traditional world have gotten really good at deriving value from the content that they create, right? They understand distribution windows. They understand, how to take a piece of content and move it from the theater to the home entertainment window, and then, basically to VOD, and then to like regular television. So they understand that whole cycle and how to derive revenue. YouTube, we're still really, we've only been around for 8 years, and a lot of folks don't yet know how to derive the most value out of the content that they create. So we believe that over the next few years, you will see from content creators on YouTube a lot of different ways for them to generate revenue. And that will increase the quality of the content production. So yes, the advertising supported model driven by TrueView that we have today will continue to be an important part of that. It's possible that paid subscriptions will be part of that mix. And we think there's other things that will play into the mix. And again, some of these things highlight, how internet content or content delivered over the internet is different from television. We have channels on YouTube, and Epic Mealtime is one example. The folks at Maker Studios, another example. But they're making hundreds of millions of dollars a year selling merchandise directly to consumers. Like, think about that for a second. So there's content creators on YouTube that have such a strong relationship with their viewer, direct relationship with the viewer, that people hundreds of thousands of people are reaching out and buying merchandise from those creators, right? So that's one of the things that I also think is important to take away about YouTube, is that because it's an interactive platform, the content creators, and you can sub out anytime I say content creator, in your head, think marketer or brand, can directly interact with the consumer and have a much stronger relationship, which then can translate into other things.
So I kind of have a twofold question for you.
Sure.
So the first part is, when we're dealing with brands, specifically some pretty big brands, a lot of the times the strategies are campaign specific. And I know that, especially, given the Gillette example, that's something that is sort of more of a long-term strategy versus something that's, going to be in market for 2013, and then you're going to move on to something else in 2014. So I'm wondering if you have any points that could help us to kind of position that to our clients as part of a longer-term strategy. And then second of all, when you were speaking about the Gillette example, you had mentioned, we had gone out and signed contracts with football clubs and that kind of thing. So how much is YouTube involved in kind of helping brands to set up those?
Sure. So I think, the first question is really about, campaign-centric thinking around content. Well, we think that the new environment that we're in means marketers actually have to be thinking in a more always-on way. We know that advertisers will always have campaigns, but what I think we hope marketers start to think about is the fact that they can engage the consumer year-round. And the consumer knows, they expect evolution in creative messaging, but that doesn't mean that they can't create homes and hubs that are always on, right? We know that an advertiser creates a video, it gets distributed through a ton of different, digital channels. And I think our marketers love that, right? So they know that their creative they create today is still out in the wild, 12 months from now. But we think they really need to evolve and start to think about ways they can build, an always-on strategy. So in terms of how we help, marketers create these channels, we do have a lot of resources, and we have people that can help build some of these experiences. The Gillette Football Hub, I think, is a very specific example where we actually did quite a lot. We also have resources like we have a team called the Next Lab, which really understands how the dynamics of YouTube work. They're available to help consult both partners and advertisers. And then we have resources like we have a thing called the Creators Playbook. And I hope I'm not going to get the Canadian team in trouble here, but I think it's something that would be very valuable for you to read. It's been written for content creators, but it can really guide marketers in how they think about, building audiences on YouTube. Sure, in the front row.
So you mentioned earlier that the 25 channels with 1 million viewers
Yeah.
a week?
It's 1 million views per week, yes.
So is there any research around how they're maintaining those numbers over time?
Yeah.
Or how they build them?
Sure. So I think it's partially related to subscriptions, right? So as they connect with viewers subscribe, they get notified not only through the feed on the homepage, but also through direct emails from the content creator. So I think subscriptions is kind of core to that. The other thing that I would say is that channels that are successful directly engage their viewers. The internet is different from television, right? Television is very one way, right? The content that you're watching tonight that might be premiering, first time it's been on air, may have been filmed 6 weeks ago. It might have been filmed 6 months ago. The content that you're watching on YouTube today, when the video is uploaded, may have been filmed 6 hours ago, right? So one of the things that we're seeing from successful channels is that they're listening to their viewers. I think one of the best examples of this from the original programming portfolio was that one of the channels had a show they created, and it had a host. And as they were reading the comments, they realized the viewers, they liked the show, they hated the host, right? And so they changed him. They hired somebody else, and they were able to do that change in 1 week and help make the show be more successful. So it's part of that engagement and response that helps drive success. And again, it works for content creators, and it'll work for marketers. Okay, please.
How do we get access to sort of those numbers, or is there a list of the 25 most successful?
I think if you follow up with whoever you work with at Google, they can give you access to that. I can't see. Oh, please.
Could you talk a bit about the studio that you opened up?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things we just did in Los Angeles, and we will be doing this in other countries around the world, is we've opened up something called a creator's space. And if you're ever in LA, drop us a line. It's kind of a stunning facility. But what we've started to do is, we really believe in helping the creators on YouTube succeed. And although I've talked a lot about professional creators, that's not really the way we think at YouTube. We think about the entire spectrum because, tomorrow's star, it might be, you might think of them as a user today, and then tomorrow they could be one of the biggest producers in the world. We had Justin Bieber in the intro video is a great example of that. So we've built a space in Los Angeles called the Creator Space, and it's really meant to be a place for content creators to get access to production facilities that they maybe can't afford in their own homes to help them increase the quality of their productions. It's also a great opportunity to have the world of YouTube and the world of Hollywood collide. So we have stars that you recognize from some of the biggest films in the world who are coming into the studio to work with a creator on YouTube who, actually, has way more, has a massive amount of subscribers and has the ability to, and I don't want to speak about the exact example because this hasn't launched yet, but it's a great example of an A-list star who who has a charity. And they're trying to get the word out about this charity, right? They realize that the users on YouTube have a better ability to get that word out than they can by themselves, because these users have tens or hundreds, they have tens or millions of subscribers on their, existing YouTube channels. And so that's what the creator space is there to help do. Great. Any others? Last question? Okay, I can. So I actually don't really have a comment on that. I don't work on the Google search side, so unfortunately I can't comment on that.
You mentioned TV viewership dropping to as little as 25% in as few as 5 to 10 years. Are there sort of one or two key dominoes that you see falling for that to happen? How do you
Yeah, so to clarify, I wasn't saying that TV viewership would drop to 25%. I think what we think may happen is that viewership on the channels that you are familiar with today, the several hundred channels that exist on your existing programming guide, we think viewership on those channels will likely drop to about 25% of the total. And that 75% will be on this new, emerging set of channels. And so what we think the domino effect there is the fact that this content will actually be available. And if you think about your own internet, usage, there are probably some subjects that you are really passionate about that 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to engage in. Today, because these barriers are falling, someone may create a network about the thing that you care more about in life than anything else. And they'll be able to do that in a really efficient and effective way because there's no cost infrastructure. And that could become, 5 years from now, your favorite network, the thing you tune in first, could be that network. And so that's what we think is going to help drive this kind of viewership shift. It's an increase in choice and the ability to do things that are kind of more personalized to people's interests that we think are going to shift the viewership landscape. Great. One last one.
Between videos on YouTube and augmented reality in terms of Google time?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I guess the one thing I can say there is, augmented reality, it sounds like Google Glasses to me, and I know we have that, with developers today. So I think we're excited. As you know, Google kind of likes to go out there and do crazy things, and so I don't know. I don't know if I could put a timeline on it, but I think I'm just as excited as you are to see some of that stuff. Great.
I think we have run out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Paul Arling with BBDO on behalf of the ICA. Just want to thank Jamie for an amazing presentation. The number of questions, I think, is testament to how curious we all are about what's going on at YouTube. And thank you also to Google for being a long-time and loyal supporter of the ICA and Adweek. We appreciate their support over the last few years. I would remind everybody that there are still lots of very good presentations coming up for the rest of the week. So please go to advertisingweek.ca and check on the schedule and see if there's something that interests you. But on behalf of the ICA, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, for you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.